A lot of quarterbacks go to the Titans and they're absolutely horrible. So that scares me for Hendon Hooker to go there. It would be awesome if he were just down the road and he were tabbed as their future. But I got to be honest with you, I don't want to see him go there. I would rather see him go to Seattle Seahawks type place where Geno Smith is probably going to play out a contract and then they'll want an upgrade. I would like to see him go to some place like, I hate to say this, but it's true, the Eagles, who would tailor make an offense to you as they've done with Jalen Hurts. I would like to see him go to a Baltimore Ravens type of place where they do some more innovative things. What do you think as a Titans fan?
I am the most objective Titans fan you guys will ever meet. Let me say that up front. I love the idea of Hendon Hooker at Tennessee. Let me break down why. For those who don't understand Tennessee's offense, you're right. It's very simple. As long as they stick with the offense they have. Let me start with that. And you don't have to have Derrick Henry. You can have any power running back to play in that offense. Derrick Henry is, I love the guy, but he's replaceable. As long as you keep the offensive line in the interior of the offensive line, Tennessee's offense is basically, you're right, ground and pound, ground and pound, ground and pound, wear down the defense. And then they need a quarterback who can do two things, who can deliver the ball when they get hit and has a pretty deep ball. Doesn't even have to make great reads, just has to have a good deep ball and has a little bit of mobility. Hendon Hooker has all three of those things. He can deliver the ball when he gets hit. He's got a beautiful deep ball, and he's got mobility. You never really see more than one or two reads. The problem with Mariota before Tannehill, because people wondered how Tannehill worked out so well and Mariota didn't. Mariota was not able to stand and deliver and take a hit. He was very accurate. He actually doesn't have a bad deep ball, but he couldn't take a hit. You got to be able to take that hit in the pocket. You talked about that with Danny Werfel and Steve Spurrier's offense. It's not the same with Hooker in this offense because you're not throwing 50 times a game and getting hit every time you throw the ball. But when you do throw the ball, you got to be willing to get hit. And Hendon Hooker, I think, is a perfect fit for this. I think let Ryan Tannehill play out the last year of his contract. Let Hendon Hooker develop. I'm sorry. I love it. You stick with this offense. It's beautiful. The reason the Titans offense quarterbacks have failed over the past 15 years post Steve McNair is they've just picked bad quarterbacks. Okay, it's that simple. Jeff Fisher tried to make Kerry Collins Peyton Manning in 2009, 2010.
Right.
Vince Young was very thin-skinned, not helped by the fact that, I got to be honest, I think Jeff Fisher sabotaged Vince Young's career. I'm not saying it was all Fisher's fault. Vince Young had his own demons, but Jeff Fisher was willing to sabotage the Titans to stick it to Vince Young. Then they went and drafted Jake Locker. That was the dumbest draft pick. Anybody that watched college football around that time knew Jake Locker wasn't cut out for the NFL.
Agree with that.
And then they went for Mariota.
So Jake Locker's parents would disagree with you, but everybody else would agree with you.
Yes, you're right. Jake Locker's parents would disagree. Everybody else would agree. My big thing is if you're completing 55% of your passes in college, I would never touch you. The only exception to that so far has been Josh Allen, but that is the rarest, most unique exception possible. Every other quarterback, my baseline is you have to complete 60% of your passes in college.
A couple of things based off, and man, I love the smartest listeners and viewers. I love the input there, so keep it coming. A couple of things we just need to go ahead and get out of the way now. We need to say this is not going to be an offense with Hendon Hooker that's based around Derrick Henry, okay? Because he's going to sit behind Ryan Tannehill, who somebody posted on the message board, which is a great point. He can sit a year or two. So this offense, at that point, Derrick Henry, the tread will be thin on the tires, and you'll be thinking about another direction to go. Maybe it's just another power back, and you run the same type of offense that you're running now. Maybe you get more innovative that I would like to see with Hendon Hooker because I think he's that bright, and I think he can handle that. But let's forget about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry could be on two other teams by the time Hendon Hooker's ready to play. So we've seen the Cowboys cut bait with Ezekiel Elliott, and that's what you do with a power back when you feel like he's starting to slip a little bit, and they're not going to be very patient because once it starts to go downhill, it goes downhill very, very fast. Smoky Mountain Red pointed out, I feel like they're talking too much about the age of Hooker, how many quarterbacks come into the league and have maturity issues. ESPN is just creating a narrative, a mature Hooker is a good Hooker. Well, I don't know about the end of that, but I will say this. I don't understand why the age of Hooker is any sort of negative. To me, that's an incredible positive. Caleb, that he's 26 years old. I mean, a lot of quarterbacks don't start playing their best until they are of that age, and they can play into their 40s nowadays. I don't see what, as a matter of fact, to me, that's a bonus, whoever we're talking about, to be a little bit older, more mature.
So where it's a little bit different for Hendon Hooker is I think we have to acknowledge that Hendon Hooker's mobility is going to be a necessary aspect of his game. His ability to run. He's going to have that running threat. He can't, and this is mainly because he just never played in a system that did this, so he hasn't learned it at all, but he can't be a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, even Aaron Rodgers. And I'm not talking about on that level. That can't be his style. He's going to have to use his mobility some. Mobile quarterbacks have a shorter shelf life, so their window is a little bit shorter, so I don't know if he can play into his late 30s. I will say that it doesn't matter, though, because he's only 24, and you're right. If he sits behind a guy for a year or even two, okay, so he's starting at 26 or 27. Even with his mobility, that's a good at least 6 years of elite quarterback play. I don't understand this whole I want a guy for 15 to 20 years. I think the NFL's a win-now league, and I think it's always been a win-now league. And the worst mistake people make is trying to find somebody, is preferring the 10 to 20-year guy over the 5-year guy. I'm still not over. Look, one of the reasons Peyton Manning didn't choose the Titans, this is well known, was because Mike Munchak and the coaching staff and Chris Palmer wanted to go forward with Locker and did not want to change up their game plan or their playbook for Peyton Manning. That is the dumbest thing ever done in the history of sports. That doesn't mean they didn't. That doesn't mean they didn't want Peyton Manning, by the way. It just meant that they weren't willing to change up their playbook because they still thought Locker was their future. Who cares about your future? I'll take 4 years of Peyton Manning over 20 years of anybody. So I think if you can get a good 5 to 6 years out of a quarterback, that's fine. The Ravens only got 5 good years out of Joe Flacco. They got a Super Bowl out of those 5 years. Now they should have let him walk after he wanted that contract, but that's a different story.
Well, we're going to have some fun with 4 Downs, brought to you by Zool Beer. Zool Beer, XULbeer.com is the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports, worldwide award-winning craft beer. ZoolBeer.com. Check them out. They've got parking downtown, and they have just awesome panoramic view of downtown that you'll enjoy there at XULbeer.com, ZoolBeer.com. Look them up. Check them out. 4 Downs is now.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show.
4
Downs. A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
Okay, so here we go. First down. Make an argument that Will Levis is a better prospect than Hendon Hooker for the NFL.
I have to make that argument?
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to say, because we're playing devil's advocate here. I'm going to say has a slightly bigger arm, doesn't throw the deep ball as well. A big arm is more about just the deep ball, and is incredibly tough. But I would take Hendon Hooker over him, and it's not close. What about you?
Yes, I would easily take Hendon Hooker. I'll make the argument. Let me preface with what this reminds me of. I took a constitutional law class in college, and we had to make the argument that segregation was constitutional, even though we all disagree with that now. So this is what this reminds me of now.
Well, we're not going to segregate anybody, but Will Levis.
But because they teach you to make the argument from the other side.
Sure.
And so Will Levis. Will Levis has more experience making going through multiple reads on throws than Hendon Hooker, and he did it with less help and a less innovative offense and getting hit all the time, and he had almost nobody around him last year. That would be the one argument. Hendon Hooker, the one thing that's a concern, I talked to you about this last night. There was a stat that came out that apparently Hendon Hooker has only thrown to his second read 16 times in the last 2 years, and you thought that was too high.
Yeah, I was a little surprised it was that high. Second down, Anthony Richardson. It's just upside, right? I mean, there's no other argument. It's just he's an incredible physical freak. That's the only argument. I still would take Hendon Hooker over Anthony Richardson. And to me, if I ranked them, Levis would be ahead of Richardson. But
I just talked to you about completing under 60% of your passes. Anthony Richardson completed 55% of his passes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, I mean, to me, it's just upside. It's projecting. That's the only argument.
And I don't ever believe in drafting quarterbacks based on upside. I'm sorry, I never have. It's
I agree with that.
Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are the only time that's ever panned out, by the way. 95% of the time when you draft quarterbacks with upside that aren't polished, they're disasters in the NFL. Almost always.
Third down, who would you definitely take above Hendon Hooker? Quarterback.
Only one, Bryce Young. I'm not against taking CJ Stroud over Hendon Hooker, but Bryce Young's the only one I would definitely take because I take Bryce Young over anybody in this draft.
I would too. I'd take Stroud over him. Is there any chance fourth down this is a smoke screen? The people are inflating Hendon Hooker to try to better their leverage for teams that want to trade up and get a quarterback.
It's possible because the Titans are hinting that they're interested in Hendon Hooker, but just 2 days ago, it sounded like they wanted to trade up for the third pick, which would mean they're trying to get Anthony Richardson. So that's possible for some teams, and maybe even the Titans being one of them, which if they do that, I will be here in May lashing out at the Titans, and it'll be a regular running gag of me trashing the Titans, and I will be so upset if they draft Anthony Richardson. I might break something.
Don't want that. Well, yes, I think some teams there's no question or smoke screen. I think half the information we hear is a narrative that people want us to believe, fake news, Mr. Jones wants to call it. Whatever the case may be, I think about half the stuff you hear about the draft and who people are interested in is the smoke screen, if not 75% of it. So, yeah, there's a great chance.